there is a continued hunger crisis that is continuing to mount, and we're seeing this manifest most severely in countries in East Africa and in parts of Asia. And that's due really to a series of compounding factors, but really hunger is being driven by what we're calling the three C's: conflict, climate change, and the ongoing impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And really this plays out differently depending on the context, but those are the three really the main genres that you could categorize the hunger crisis in.
What are some of the, efforts by World Vision to mitigate that problem in a country difficult to access, having its own issues?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, just like you said, there's political instability, economic instability. We've seen poor harvests. I was just talking with a colleague in the Sudan region who was describing to me just the amounts of heavy rain and flooding that we've seen in the region since August that's going to disrupt the planting season and will definitely affect outputs of that harvest. But World Vision, we have a presence in hunger hotspots around the world. And as we began to see the size and scale of this global crisis, we felt the need to mobilize a global response declaration. And the goal of that response is to reach 22 million people in 25 specific countries, and Sudan is included in that. Our field teams have expertise in leadership and cash and food and nutrition programming, as well as being the largest implementing partner of the World Food Program. So in Sudan, we have 5 WFP partnerships, as well as a multi-sectoral response program focused on livelihoods interventions, primary health care, wash services, which is clean water, water sanitation services, and nutrition screening and treatments in South and East Darfur and Blue Nile.
How big is the magnitude of the issue? You guys were talking about 143% of, inflation effects on food prices. And how big is that in Sudan?
Yeah, so we just recently put out a report called our Price Shocks Report. And basically, in addition to evaluating these drivers that I talked about before, it looks at specific countries to see how much the cost of a common food basket has increased in the past year. And in Sudan, that was one of the most staggering increases with 143%. And again, that's a result of the compounding factors that I described earlier. And we found that it takes about 9 days to earn enough money to purchase a food basket in Sudan compared to 1.2 hours for the same food basket in the United States. So our report is really the average of the cost of the food basket across the country, but there are data points and reports that indicate, again, that the highest cost for a local food basket in Sudan was recorded in South and East Darfur, followed by the Blue Nile state.
If you look at the global response to issues, humanitarian issues to do with hunger, the focus is on Ukraine. I mean, is that affecting your advocacy, for countries like Sudan that has been in its own problems for years before even the war in Ukraine?
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the world's attention has turned to the crisis in Ukraine, worried about, what's going to happen with the refugees coming out of that country, rightfully so. Ukraine and Russia regions are a huge exporter of wheat and maize and some of these other staple crops that other countries like Sudan import. About 80% of Sudan's wheat imports come from that region. So yes, the conflict is its own issue and needs attention, but the knock-on effects of that conflict have really had completely devastating consequences for countries around the world, countries like Sudan. So yeah, we do feel strongly that, as an aid agency, we're trying to raise awareness for these other contexts and these other countries that are being affected by the Ukraine crisis. But, like you said, have their own issues and own drivers that are continuing to exacerbate the hunger crisis that we're seeing.
Is World Vision experiencing donor fatigue when we come to issues to do with Africa and specifically Sudan?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there is the sense that the crisis is so large. How can we address this issue? And it really is upon aid agencies to continue to communicate that yes, the need is very great, but we have the tools, we have the understanding on how to address these issues, and we need donors, every type of donor, government donors, individual donors, to step up and to realize that they can be a part of the solution to this problem. So, we as aid agencies, we know how to respond to these types of crises. We have presence in these countries around the globe, and we need donors to step up and be a part of the solution.